The eagerly awaited Elden Ring is getting new gameplay from a special hands-on session that we were incredibly lucky to participate in. We are allowed to explore the first hours of the full game, giving us a clear idea of what to expect with the full release. The hands-on session didn't allow capture, but all participants were given associated footage to use and distribute. The footage should be new and separate from the previous B-roll published at the start of the month, so watch on to catch all the new reveals. Before we begin, I would like to clarify that this is by its nature a very spoiler-heavy piece. Describing the experiences without mentioning names or describing happenings results in a shallow explanation, so for those of you wanting to go spoiler-free, we have a short summary that should give you the highlights of what's new without going into names or more. Everyone could play the game for a limited amount of hours and without leaving some specific boundaries. We were allowed to explore lots of areas beyond what was in the network test, so we could see all of Limgrave, the island to the south of it, the expanding plains to the east, and the previously inaccessible northern area of the map that was shown in official trailers. Items and NPCs are not necessarily where they were during the network test that had crammed a lot of tools for players to try out into one small area. An entirely new map was revealed. The game's hub and many NPCs were revealed. The game seems to have a lot more quests than previous games, and they are accessed earlier on. There seems to be a lot more NPCs to find and interact with than you would expect from a Souls title. Each location had a theme that matched the overall world, but with its own unique characteristics. The enemy design varied greatly from some areas to others, and there are plenty of creatures and monsters, all with their own movesets. There is a fantastic amount of mini-boss type enemies with really varied designs, movesets, and even music. We found plus 12 weapon upgrades and what seemed to be the equivalent of Twinkling Titanite. You may be able to craft foe spells that are either consumables or buffs. The game has so many secrets and discoverables that you'll be spending a lot of time just figuring them out. Exploration is key, and the world is designed around subtle but effective hints to guide you along without holding your hand. Combat and feel are extremely Souls-like. Many dungeons feel like you're playing Souls, but with a completely new set of tools at your disposal. From here, this video will cover everything we found, including the names of locations, bosses, NPCs, and some notable items. If you're trying to avoid spoilers, we suggest you jump to the final chapter for the summary overview of how everything felt, or you could just give in to temptation and save yourself 2 weeks of trying and failing to avoid all the spoilers online. Launching the game will bring you to the same character class selection screen as you saw in the network test. There are 10 classes available, which have already been revealed, but we can also add some details to their stats and equipment, and details on this are on the wiki for you to check out. Vagabond has high vigor, strength, and dexterity, starts with a sword, shield, and halberd, so possibly comparable to the knight class in previous games. Warrior, which has high dex, medium physical stats with 2 scimitars and a light shield. Hero, strength and vigor with some arcane, has an axe and shield. Bandit, high arcane and dexterity, has a dagger pairing shield, bow, and arrows. Astrologer, high intelligence and mind, some dexterity, uses a staff, sword, and shield. Prophet, high faith and mind, some arcane and strength, starts with a spear, finger steel, and small shield. Samurai, high dexterity, medium strength, endurance, mind, and vigor, begins with a great sword, bow, and arrows, flaming arrows too, and a shield. Prisoner, high intelligence and dexterity, medium physical stats, has a great sword, and pole plus a shield. Confessor, high faith, medium physical stats, has a broadsword, kite shield, and a finger seal. Wretch, the deprived of the game, is level 1 with 10 on all stats and just a club for weapons. Keepsake, the new gifts for character creation are as follows. Nun, Crimson Amber Medallion, which gives HP, Land Between Rune, which gains runes, Golden Seed, which upgrades your flask, Fanged Imp Ashes, which is a spirit ash we think that you can summon, Cracked Pot, which allows you to craft throwing pots, Stone's Word Key opens Imp Gargoyle locks, Bewitching Branch, no idea, Boiled Prawn negates damage, and Shabriri's Woe increases madness buildup. From here, we face the typical first boss of any RPG, character customization. Selecting your appearance is more detailed than in any previous Souls game, and you actually stand a good chance of making a reasonably human-looking character, for one. You can adjust your age, body type, hair, and facial structure alongside tinkering with your typical eyebrows, eyes, and cosmetics for tattoos. A tip that is useful to know for later is that you can edit your appearance in-game after a certain point, so you don't need to spend forever on this screen before you get going. Elden Ring opens with a new cinematic story recap made by panning some gorgeous artwork. All of these are previously unseen and further set up the plot of the game. We won't go into spoilers here about what was said, but the art style looks markedly different than previous From Software titles, and it becomes quite obvious rather quickly that players will have a much better understanding of what their goals and objectives are, even if it isn't clear just how to achieve them. Spawning into the world, you'll have a chance to pick up some items and learn the ring gesture, assuming you have the right edition, before being made to face a high-level boss, likely resulting in your ultimate demise as intended. The boss looks like the Keykeeper in Stormveil that we fought during the closed network test. You're supposed to die here, and we did, but from my exploration later on, I have a strong suspicion that if you prevail against this enemy, you'll be able to unlock a significant shortcut to a much later area. After a short cutscene with Torrent and Melina that was hinted at in previous trailers, players appear exactly where the network test began in Fringe Folk Hero's Grave, where things remain largely the same. There is, however, a new NPC that makes it clear the tutorial area is down below, just to ease new players in a bit. I'd also like to mention that the UI has gotten a small facelift with some textures being added to the HP, FP, and stamina bars, and while better than the closed network test, they may still land in the too clean or simplistic side that some users didn't like. We briefly explored the area next to the first step by using your Stonesward key. The large ramps headed down are patrolled by a large chariot enemy whose wheels will one-shot you. This felt very, very Souls, and I was immediately reminded of the chariot in Dark Souls 2 with the skeletons hiding on the spaces you try to take refuge in. I was surprised by several twists and turns, so I didn't finish exploring the area, but it gave me that distinct determination of I'll be back that you get when playing Souls. Limgrave is more or less the same. What's really different are the items scattered about, such as the new Lord Sworn's Greatsword now in Gatefront Ruins. There are new NPCs to be found and talked to, new quests to be gained from them, and of particular note, the Hunter's Shack in Stormhill now has a red-hooded woman NPC who teaches you a gesture. She tells you about the grafting going on in Stormvale Castle, revealing a convoluted situation and sharing her personal quest. She then gives you the jellyfish spirit ash that was previously found by all the jellyfish in the closed network test. Something also new is the addition of map fragments tips on the world map before you even acquire them. You can see them on your map as a bright spot even when you are at a distance, which allows players to beeline to these fragments easily. This is a handy feature because we probably picked up 8 or so in our play session, and that wasn't likely even half of the total in the game. We headed northeast from Limgrave into a forest area filled with wildlife such as wolves, deer, and giant bears. The bears make their dens within ancient ruins and caves, which hide special equipment and mini-bosses. Sometimes you can sneak around them to get to your target as they're often asleep. Other times you may find they are engaged with other enemies such as wolves and have fights between themselves, giving you a chance to pick them off smartly from afar. We found new Ashes of War, including a sacred one and a bow Ash of War that generates a penetrating shot which pierces defenses. On this, I want to point out that the artwork for Ashes has changed and each seems to have their own icon like spells do. We also saw a loading tip that Spirit Ashes can be improved or enhanced, but it's not quite clear just how to do it yet. The area's highlight moment was this place called Summon Water, where a phantom boatman reminiscent of Greek's mythical Charon rows about a massive grave, reviving skeletons to fight you. The fight is best done mounted as the Tibia Mariner field boss moves about swiftly and generates large AoE attacks of spirit water. This was a very unique encounter, and I felt like From Software has invested significant time creating innovative bosses and movesets to keep things interesting throughout the game, with this being a small tease of what's to come. But our curiosity eventually took us to the Erd trees. Now as you explore the landscape, you'll notice golden branches of the tree around. These usually have golden seeds used to upgrade your flask uses. You may also find sacred tier items in churches or shrines about the landscape that will upgrade the potency of your flask, much like shards and bone shards in Dark Souls 3. The minor Erd tree that we approached had Flask of Wondrous Physique components, the spiked cracked tier and greenspill crystal tier, that when mixed together into the flask increases your max stamina. You may remember these being in the cave and Limgrave during the network test. But what lay underneath this area was the real surprise. Back in August of last year, when we first saw gameplay of Elden Ring, a labyrinth option was shown below the map. And though we were not shown exactly what this was, we speculated it would be some underground area that players could explore. Well, now we know exactly what it is, and it has us incredibly excited. Our journey begins by stepping on a very familiar elevator platform in an unassuming dome building by a tree. You may have seen this in the footage revealed earlier this month. The ride became suspiciously long, think Dark Souls 2 Castle in the Sky Iron Keep trip. After about 30 seconds of it, cracks in the walls began to show me glimpses of a beautiful, fantastic underground world, but it still took us no less than 60 seconds to get all the way down. This underground location isn't a cave or a building, it's an actual world with checkpoints and its own map called Underground. You can actually toggle the maps back and forth once you reach this location, and you might think of this as something like the Upside Down from Stranger Things or D&D. There's even a sky that seemed to be cracked, a pantheon-looking flying castle, and a myriad of giant ruins and buildings that cover the area. You even need to collect map fragments to reveal this map, just like the normal map. What this means is that if you thought the expansive map that you have seen for Elden Ring was big, the amount of playable game world could potentially double the size that you're thinking. Of course, it's likely the underground won't be as large as that of the Overland map all said and done, but it's still amazing to think that as large as the regular map is, there is still even more beneath that will extend playtimes even further. We explored this area and encountered new materials such as Dew-Kissed Herba, in addition to higher level upgrade materials for your weapons. One in particular set upgrades to plus 12, so it's possible the max upgrade will be plus 15, much like Dark Souls 1, as well as an upgrade material that seems to be the equivalent of Twinkling Titanite and is used to upgrade unique weapons. The whole area had a moonlight field to it, and its denizens varied greatly from humanoid spear-wielding to lightning-infused wisps. Still in Siofra River, we noticed a set of pillars lining up the path to the Hollowborn grounds where the corpse of a stag rests within some temple ruins. Nearby, the base of one of the pillars held the map for the area, and we spotted a special altar that allowed us to light a flame. Doing so lit up one of the pillars on the stairs to the stag, so naturally we went on a hunt to find them all and light them. This wasn't an easy task, and we had to traverse the rocky landscape, and many ambushes by giant horned-helmed enemies attacked us. These challenging foes wear barbarian furs and attack with large axes and enormous powerful bows, but their most deadly quality is their speed and the fact that they can vanish and appear when you're nearby. Thankfully, we discovered teleporting. The game has these special gates that allow you to traverse to another location. Unlike the Sites of Grace, this is simply a skip on the map, and using these gateways will simply teleport you to a new location. You are directed to them by bright white light wind, and they can be taken back and forth. Exploring the mountains, forest, and ruins of the underground Siofra River revealed my arch nemesis, giant crabs, giant rats, and really giant rats. Other fauna in the area was the same as Overland: deer, boars, eagles, and even sheep. Once we had all the pillars lit, we approached the Hollowborn grounds again, and now there was a faint glow on the corpse. Interacting with it teleported us to a cave and begun the boss fight with the Ancestor Spirit that you may have previously seen glimpses of in reveal trailers. The moveset of this boss is floaty and magical, a fresh and new experience for Souls veterans. However, he proceeded to quickly kill us, as clearly we weren't ready for this fight. Back over ground, we headed further northeast. The landscape dries up, and you enter a desert-like area that you've likely seen bits of in gameplay trailers, though you likely didn't know that's what you were looking at. This biome is called Caelid, and the first thing to greet you will be an NPC invasion named Anastasia, who is wearing the queen armor seen in previous screenshots and using a greatsword with a moveset reminiscent of the Meat Cleaver. NPC invasions are much improved from other titles, and the AI will dodge your magic and use weapon skills smartly to take you on. Further past this encounter, a minor Erd tree is surrounded by broken pots that seem to be the discarded carcasses of pot boys. The area is guarded by a fearsome mini-boss wielding a large pole weapon, the Erd tree avatar. The enemy looked like a broken, rotting tree and used physical and magical attacks. One of the magic spells looked a lot like Homing Soul Arrow, but yellow. The area is also riddled with other enemies, so managing your aggro and movement is important as you explore. This dried and deserted area has large, deformed animals such as dogs and crows with enormous heads. Vegetation is scarce, trees are dead, and large reddish mushroom growths seem to be taking over the area. On the northern area of Caelid, an area called Grael's Dragon Barrow perked me up as the closed network test featured Grael's Roar spell near the Church of Dragon Communion. As expected, there was a dragon nearby. Well, actually, there were two dragons. As much as I wanted to sit there and try and take them on, time constrictions meant I had to run away, only to run into another dragon further up the slopes of the zone. As I hurried my steed to flee the increasing trail of dragons chasing me, I sped up the hills trying to lose them, only to end up face to face with what I presume is Greyroll, a really enormous dragon whose roar awoke about 6 other dragons around him. As comical as this sounds retelling it, I am very grateful for Torrent's unmatched speed in getting me the hell out of there. A large tower dominates the area and can be climbed and explored to reach great heights. The enemies in this area are advanced, and we weren't able to proceed further due to limited time and level, so we headed toward another minor Erd tree and were summarily killed by another tree guardian mini-boss, the Putrid Avatar. To the south, there's an Evergoal location that presumably works as a teleport to a boss fight, a disease dragon boss fight, and a large decaying area with some truly horrifying skittering bug-like enemies. As we discovered another site of grace, a dialogue with Melina triggered, taking us to Roundtable Hold. This condition is not location dependent, but rather part of your natural progress of discovery, so it will trigger differently for others as you find more and more sites of lost grace. The northern area of Caelid, Bestial Sanctum, is well guarded by large monsters and beyond our level, so we transported with Melina to explore the new hub. Some information about this area was revealed early on with the initial gameplay screenshots showing a table with large chairs and beaming grace in the middle. As you enter this location, you are informed that you may travel here from the map, but that it is outside of the world's physical containment. A pact of non-aggression forbids all within from engaging in combat, meaning you won't be accidentally pressing R2 and aggroing the smith. Yay. There are many NPCs in this area, as was revealed before, but many more than you would usually find in a typical From Software game. Korhin is a priest who teaches incantations, and there are books that you can bring him and other trainers to increase the spells they sell. Nearby sits D, yes, just D like the letter, who wears a unique gold and silver armor claiming to hunt those who live dead and warning you of their danger. Further along, Dielos greets you and asks you about a servant that has gone missing. More interestingly, an Elder Tarnished nearby wearing what I can only describe as the Witch King's helmet gives you some shade for being the newest Tarnished around. There are other silent NPCs, one of which gives you a new gesture, the Twin Maiden Husks, who give multiplayer items for what seems to be the equivalent of the Blue Sentinels multiplayer. It's possible this has some interaction with Marks for Turn-It. The blacksmith, smithing master Hugh, is a monstrous humanoid creature with stony scales and large clawed feet that you will also see around as a regular enemy in other areas. He reveals that he's a prisoner, but it's impossible to find out more about this early on. The services offered had an interesting option of Ash of War duplication, so that you can have the same ash on multiple weapons without having to change them at a bonfire. And then there's Fia, sitting on a dirty bed and surrounded by ancient books, who wants a hug in exchange for a blessing consumable that will temporarily boost your poise at the cost of FP. This is a decidedly awkward interaction, and we speculate doing this multiple times may have repercussions on her quest or others. But the item she gives you is sure to be seen in PvP, where poise can make all the difference. Locked doors and an arena full of bloodstains hint to many secrets to be revealed, and good luck as you fight the frost magic-wielding Mad Tongue, as the skills on his scythe make for some significant range, and getting frostbitten will increase all your damage taken. Interestingly, his scythe deals both bleeding and frost damage, confirming both frost magic and magical property overlap on weapon upgrades. The most surprising aspect of the Roundtable Hold wasn't the hub feel or multiple NPCs to talk to right away, but the clouded mirror that allows you to redo your entire character's appearance, including its name. This is a fantastic and welcome change, as you can fight the character creator first boss over and over again. Note, this doesn't allow you to change your starting class or gift, just your total appearance. Back from the hub, we decided to take a look at the southern area adjacent to Limgrave, which is technically part of Limgrave as well. This place is called Weeping Peninsula and has a similar landscape to that of the network test. Here you'll meet the blind noble Irina from Castle Morn, who asks you to bring a letter to her father in the castle that has been overrun by rebellious servants. This area is a natural progression from Limgrave, so we were able to explore and defeat many enemies, get a unique demi-human queen staff, find a spirit candelabra, and discover some secrets, fall through some trapped floors, and get mobbed by giant rats. After defeating a giant golem and getting the area map, we explored the minor Erd tree of the area and then headed into Castle Morn that had a very distinct Souls feeling to the mobs of dogs chasing you around. Notable points of this area was finding a different torch with a different skill that allows you to blow fire onto enemies. The previously inaccessible areas of Stormhill were now available, so we could explore the broken bridge leading to Stormvale Castle and received a prophecy from an old woman holding a staff with lots of bells. She told us to head to Rea Lucaria, so we continued east and north to unlock the next area of the map. This is a very large section, and your entry has an impressive vista that was previously shown only in trailers. You will soon meet a novice mage trainer who wants runes to teach you some basic sorceries that only have relevance if you didn't choose a mage-type class to begin with. This area also has a vendor for the astrologer set and a lantern, which hooks onto your belt and provides light as you move. As we progressed into the flooded ruins, we found several new cookbooks, and upon reading the recipes, discovered that they are used to craft faux sorceries used for temporary spells such as freezing grease. This likely means weapon buffs or consumable spell-like effects are craftable and usable by non-mages. The area's enemies include centipede-like humanoid, grafted, and fire-summoning mages in the more habitable areas. However, it eventually extends into a dreadfully large poison swamp infested by aggressive giant crabs. Thankfully, it seems Torrent is immune to poison, so you can ride around the swamp without having to deal with the effect. The western portion of Liurnia looks like Limgrave, but at a higher altitude has a minor Erd tree and some humanoid enemies with a tree growth on their bodies. I did notice the area also had one of these pointing statues that we saw in the network test that seemed to direct you toward the Church of Dragon Communion. It was the northern portion that was the most interesting, though, as a climb past some spectral jellyfish, and after clever dodges of a group of large spirit headless enemies, we found several imp pillars requesting the imbued sword key. This area is called the Four Belfries, and fortunately one of the treasure chests has a key, so we could pick one portal to open and explore. The one we selected took us to the tutorial area boss fight, which is on an island just west of Stormvale Castle. This gives you a chance at redemption versus the grafted Scion boss that killed you when you started, but we got greedy during the fight and died a typical Soul's death. The central portion of this area has the Rea Lucarian Academy. The surrounding town is destroyed and flooded, and the whole area is overrun by large-headed goblin creatures, giant magical flowers, and other threats, and is by far one of, if not the most magical area we've seen. Access to the academy is blocked by the procurement of a specific key, but by this point, we are at the time limit of our session. Final thoughts. When I first heard of Elden Ring and saw the few screenshots and early footage, I thought it would be Dark Souls 4. When I first saw official gameplay last year, I thought it would be a take on open world like Dragon's Dogma, but still Dark Souls. When I first played Elden Ring during the network test, I thought it would be less Souls and more about traversing large landscapes and popping into dungeons. 50 hours into the demo, I thought I knew the game's tempo and knew how the whole game would turn out. My first hours with the full game have taught me otherwise. This is a game that will shatter your expectations, and you can't even imagine the actual scale and depth of it. Every time you think you have it figured out, some new thing pops up around the corner to surprise you. Elden Ring is poised to be a generation-defining game by combining From Software's creative ingenuity with tried-and-true Souls concepts, taking the excellent combat of the series and giving it incredible room to grow in this expansive and fantastical world that is a pleasure to explore. So what did you guys think after seeing the gameplay? Are you guys excited as we are? Is this going to be a generation-defining game? Let us know in the comments below.